Hi, this is Denise Mathew, and I'm here with August subscriber charts. First of all, I want to thank everybody who's offered their charts for me to do an analysis on it. They've been really helpful, and thank you so much for allowing me to have a look at your chart. But going forward, because I've got a lot of other things I'm trying to work on, some more projects, and trying to get my website up and going, I'm not going to be accepting any more subscriber charts. And don't worry, I will definitely honor the ones that I already have. So there will be one more set of subscriber charts in September. But after that, I'm just going to hold off, and I might open it up again. And if I do, I'll definitely let everyone know. So for the first chart that we have today, we have March 9th, 1979. So the first thing we can see is that this is somebody who is a projector, and I already have 2 videos on what it's like to be a projector, but briefly, somebody who's a projector is here to guide and direct generator types. So what that means is that they're here to help manage and work with generator types, or basically to guide them along the way. Projector types are not really here to know themselves, they're here to know other people, and because of that they learn a lot as they go along in their lives, and they have a wealth of information. Unfortunately, one issue that projectors can come in contact with is that sometimes they want to give their information or they want to give their guidance to people, but people don't want to accept it. And that makes sense because as a society and as people, we're way more receptive to getting information from people if we're given the opportunity to ask for it. So the whole thing about being a projector is it's all about being invited or acknowledged. I prefer to say acknowledged or asked for information, and the actual terminology would be an invitation, but ultimately it's about waiting until someone asks for your advice or asks for your opinion before you actually give it. So that's a really important part of being a projector. And if a projector understands this part of who they are, then it can really help them get heard the way they want to be heard. Because if they're not waiting to have that recognition, then what can happen is they're offering advice and then are just not open to it. So what happens is they get shot down or something like that, and then the projector feels unhappy, or they can even become bitter if it continues to be a problem. But again, this is something that somebody who's a projector, or any type for that matter, can experiment with and see if it works for them. If somebody who's a projector finds that they're always heard the way they want to be heard and everything works smoothly, then that's fine. But if they feel that they've had a theme in their life of not being heard properly, people not wanting their advice or their information, then it might be something that they could experiment with. And we always know that somebody is a projector because, first of all, they have an open sacral, so the center square is not red, it's white. But the other thing that they also have to have is they don't have a motor to the throat. So if you look at this person, they have a defined throat, which means they have a sort of more of a fixed way of speaking. But because there's no motors, like for instance, if they have the gate 45 coming off the throat, if they had the gate 21, that would actually give them a motor to the throat, and then they would be considered a manifestor instead of a projector. So if we move on to the centers that are open, we see that of course they have an open sacral, which we know, and that's more of a fluid energy. So when you have an open sacral, you don't have like almost like a battery pack of energy that you always have at your disposal like generator types do. So what that means is that you're dependent on the energy of other people around you. So sometimes somebody who has an open sacral can be at home and they really don't feel like they can get much done, but then they go out to a public area or a library or somewhere where there's a lot of people, and they start to feel like they have more energy to get the things they want done. Now, when we're talking about the sacral center, we're always talking about workforce energy, life force energy, really the energy that gets us up out of bed, that makes us go to work, that allows us to get things done in the day in a physical manner. The one thing about anybody who has an open sacral is that they have to understand that their energy is transient. It comes and it goes, and they can use it when they have it, but pushing beyond those limitations can leave them burnt out and exhausted. So learning about their energy, learning how it works for them is a real benefit to them so that they don't get too exhausted and too burnt out. Because what happens is if they go beyond what their capabilities are, or whatever their personal capabilities, because everybody has their own capabilities, we can't have one particular way for everyone, then they can run into some issues with energy and just being depleted, and to the extreme, like I said, being completely burnt out and not even being able to do anything at all. So you don't want to get to that state. So knowing about your energy and learning how it works for you is really, really going to be a benefit. This is a person who also has an open root. Now, the root is always considered the pressure center, a pressure center. There are two pressure centers, the head and the root. So when somebody has an open root, that means that they're always feeling pressure, or they potentially could always be feeling pressure to get things done. There are two ways that a root can express itself when it's open. One is to have that constant feeling of pressure to get things done, and the other way is to wait until the pressure builds up so much so that they can have that energy to get things done, or they feel like they have so much pressure that they just really need to get things done. So that could be leaving a deadline to the very, very last moment before you get your work done. Or the other option is, as soon as you get a project in or something that you need to do, you do it right away, and it goes in your head and you can't stop thinking about it till it's actually done. And I would say with this person, I would say that is a good potential, because we also have the gate 9 coming off the sacral, which is the only gate coming off the sacral. And the gate 9 is all about focus, and this is like a hyper focus. And sometimes you can have a little obsession with this. Really, the obsession that comes is really about trying to find out all the pieces to the puzzle, and maybe sometimes looking at all the small parts of something but not really seeing the big picture. That would be a potential for somebody who has the gate 9, especially when it's hanging. Any gates that are hanging or half gates don't complete a full channel. They're usually gates that may give us more of a theme in our lives. So in other words, we might have to work a little harder to make the energy work on the highest level to our benefit, as opposed to going to the other side, which can leave us feeling a little bit obsessed with things, as opposed to somebody who has a gate 9 can be really have a great attention to detail to really know exactly what's happening when they're looking at things. And when we see that the gate 9 is in Mercury, this could be somebody who could be wonderful at editing things or anything related to communication. They could see all the little mistakes or the details of everything. So if you look at it as a potential for some positive in your life and try and work with that level, it can be very helpful. And the root center only has a gate 41 off it, and the gate 41 is all about fantasy. There can be a rich imagination here. This could be also somebody who is interested in the other realms, like the fairy realm, or something like the earth realm and earthly creatures. They can also be somebody who likes to be out in nature, somebody who likes to hike. Now, if we imagine that the electromagnetics of all our hanging gates are drawing the opposite gate to make full channels, then we could imagine that this person would have a lot of people who were quite intense in their life, because a gate 30 is a very intense energy that's actually called the clinging fire. There is a lot of benefit to this energy, because somebody who has a gate 30 can hold on to the energy or the idea until it can come into fruition. So if we now move on to the defined centers, we see that there's a lot of definition here. So this person has almost every center defined except for the root and the sacral, which means there's a lot of definition, so a lot of fixed energy, or a more fixed way of being in most of their personality or who they are. Now, when I talk about personality, I'm not talking about the right-hand side black numbers. I'm just talking about general personality. So if we look at the head, we have a defined head, and that's defined through the 64-47. This is the gate of 64 is the gate of confusion, and then 47 is having the ability to break up the information, because what happens is when you have the gate 64, you have big downloads of information. So the gate 47 allows the person to break down the big loads of information, and they can use it in some sort of smaller parts so they can understand it better. Anybody who has a defined head and ajna is considered somebody who is an inspiration to other people, because what's happening is we have about, I think it's only about 8% of people who have a defined head and ajna. And so what that means is that they're having all these downloads, and they say that the 64 is connected to superconsciousness, so they're having big downloads of information, and all the people with open heads and ajnas are going around being inspired by the people who have definition. And if you look at this chart, we see that the head is connected to the ajna, but it's also connected to the throat. So whatever is happening, whatever kind of information this person is thinking about, generally they can get it to the throat. In other words, they can actually start to speak about it. When you don't have a connection from the ajna to the throat, and you have a lot of information that's sort of rumbling around in your head, it can be difficult because you have a lot of mind chatter, but you just don't feel like you can articulate it. So for this reason, it's a good thing that this person has a connection. So the other thing is it's actually connected through the 1762, which is all about opinions. And then you also have opinions for a practical application. So because it has the gate 62, which makes a complete channel. So when you have the complete channel, again, the energy is going to be expressed in a more fluid way, as opposed to really where you have the hanging gate and you may not get the highest expression of the gate. But when we have the gate 17, what can happen is this is somebody who has a lot of opinions about things, and generally the opinions are given in a way that the person is trying to help. And when you think about this as a person who's a projector as well, they're already hardwired to try and help people, and they have these opinions as well. So what happens is they can go around and they can be telling people their opinions, and then people get frustrated. So the really important thing with the gate 17 especially, and the whole channel, is to wait to be acknowledged for the information. The one thing I can say from personal experience is that if I ask somebody if they want my advice or want my information that I have to give them, it always goes a lot better if I allow them to say yes or no. If I decide to just tell them exactly what I'm thinking without actually asking, then generally it doesn't go as well. So it's just one of those things that getting a permission, you could even just say, can I tell you what I'm thinking? And if they say no, then you just kind of have to hold off, and then eventually they will usually butt up against quite a few walls, and generally people will start to take the advice because they understand that they actually need it at this point. They also have the channel 4323. Now this is a mutative channel, and when we talk about the 4323, we're talking about really new and innovative ideas, and usually these ideas are ahead of their time. So this can be somebody who has an amazing idea about something, and they're getting really excited about it and they want to share it with people, and then people just think they're crazy because the timing isn't right. The 4323 can have the most amazing and innovative ideas and plans and things that can happen in the future, but if they're not waiting for the right timing, they can be shot down, and then they're disappointed, and then it never gets out where it needs to go. So ultimately, again, we just need that moment to really just wait and see how it works out. And usually there's some sort of an acknowledgement when you're a projector, especially because that would be the strategy, an acknowledgement or an invitation to share the information that you have. The gate 56 is also defined. The gate 56 is all the gate of the storyteller. This is somebody who can really have amazing metaphors to explain things. This is a great thing if you're doing any teaching or anything, because you can get some tough concepts, you can break them down, and you can use metaphors and stories to describe it to the people that you're talking to. If we combine it with the gate 41, we have somebody who could be a gifted storyteller with a lot of fantasy. And if we notice, the gate 56 is in the Jupiter, so that tells us that it would be something that would be a gift to them to be able to tell the stories that they have accumulated as life goes on. So then we go down to the throat center, and I did say that was defined, but it's not defined by a motor. So this is going to be an energy that is always going to be better received when you're acknowledged before you start telling people things. So there's a lot of this acknowledging before you're telling people the information that you have. And I'm sure because this person is a profile 1-3, they've done a lot of experiments and investigations, because that's the whole path of somebody who carries this profile. So it's important for them to be received in the best way so that they can give all the wealth of information that they've learned, and all the information that they've learned basically experimenting with things in life. And the whole point of the third line is to understand what worked for them in their life, and they can relay the information to other people, so other people don't have to make we could say mistakes, but really it's never really a mistake. It's always just a learning opportunity. But they can also just show people, I tried this, that, and the other thing, but this is exactly what works. And it just saves a lot of people time, and it's really helpful in the long run. But having the right platform or the right people listening to somebody who has all this information is the most important thing. And the only way you're going to get the right people is if you're acknowledged or invited into, giving that information. And when we see the throat center, we also see that the gate 33 is defined, and this is all about somebody who could potentially like history or historical stories. And this again can be somebody who actually takes these historical stories, historical fantasy stories, and you combine them with the 41, the 56, and also the 33, and we have again somebody who could be doing historical fantasy stories. And the other aspect is the gate 45. So the gate 45 is the gate of the king or queen, and this is somebody with a natural energy for leadership. But this type of leadership is not a democratic leadership that's somewhere else in the chart. So basically what happens when you have this kind of energy is that people want to put you ahead, or they want to make you their leader. And as a projector, this is helpful. So if you're acknowledged, then this can really help you to be able to get the message you want across to other people. It can also be the gate of abundance, and there can be some resources involved in the gate 45. But the one thing that you have to be careful with the gate 45 is the gate 45 on its own, again, hanging, can sometimes be somebody who attracts people who have the other gate, the gate 21, and that could be the gate of somebody who likes to control, because it's the gate 45 is the king or queen and the gate 21 is a treasurer. So they're the ones that like to control the queen or king, but there has to be a balance between the two. So this could be somebody who attracts people who have a controlling energy. The whole energy of the 45-21 in its best and highest form is that you can imagine that the gate 45 is a king or queen and they're ruling their kingdom, and then you have the treasurer working behind the scenes and making sure that everybody has enough food and all the other things they need to get through the winter. But if the queen is just outspending, or the queen or king is outspending all the resources, or using up all the resources and not really having any fixed plan, then what can happen is you could have your kingdom starving for the winter. So that's why the treasure is there. But again, there has to be a balance. The queen has to be the queen and the treasure has to do the treasure. And when you have the two balanced together, it works really well. And there can be a lot of competition with this energy as well. That's one more thing to keep in mind. So now if we look at the identity center, we see that they have the gate 1. The gate 1 is a creative contribution, and this is a contribution for the people. It's less of an individual energy, because that's more like a gate 22, which they have as well. It's an individual creative energy. This is more of, it's individual, yes, but it's also individual to make something for people so that it can better their lives in some way. And usually this is a really strong leadership energy where people want to listen to this person, but it's always going to be that they have to be recognized before they can actually be seen and heard in the best possible light. It's also connected to the gate 57, and that's a 5710 channel. And the thing about that channel is this is the channel of perfection. So this is somebody who could get a little bit bungled up with trying to be perfect all the time. It's going right into the identity. So this identity of trying to be perfect and really not making mistakes could be something that can kind of stop them from doing, because ultimately when we get to this point where it always has to be perfect, we start sometimes wondering if we can even try anything, because we're worried that it's going to be messed up, or we're going to make a mistake, especially when you have the 1-3 profile, which you're always going to have experiments or things that don't work out that you've tried. So the key here is to understand that experiments are just that. They're just a way of learning, and if it doesn't work out exactly the way you want it to, it was just one trial, and you can always try again and see if the results are better or results are closer to what you want them to be. And that's what experiments are. We also see that this person has a defined will center, and they're defined through the 44-26. And the thing about this is it's all about sales energy. So somebody who carries the 44-26 and a defined will center can be somebody who it would be wonderful at sales. And anybody who has a defined will is always going to empower people just by being around. There's a real can-do energy when somebody has a defined will. And what that means is that if somebody who has a defined will goes in and they want to get a job, and somebody who doesn't have a defined will is going for the same job, a lot of times the person with a defined will generally get the job, because there's this feeling that you get from the defined will center is that they really know what they're doing and they really have it figured out, kind of thing. So it's a good thing to have. And the other thing about this will center is that it's also defined through the 40-37, and this is also about making deals and bargains. Now somebody who has this energy really wants people to keep their end of the bargain. So if you make a deal with somebody who has a 40-37, then if you break the deal, then they definitely could take it as a personal affront to them, because it's really important that somebody holds their word when you have this energy. And the other thing about a will center center is all about work to rest, especially when you have somebody who's a projector who has energy that is not consistent or more fluid in the sacral energy. So somebody who has a defined will and an open sacral can burn themselves out, because the thing about the will center is they can always go beyond and above their physical capabilities. They can push themselves to the limit. But the thing about the will center is that what you're supposed to do is you get all your work done that you need to do, but you also have to have a rest. And if you don't have a rest, usually the universe will make a rest for you, and that can mean that you can get sick. It could mean that something will happen that will keep you out of the fray of life. So it's important to always understand that part of yourself so that you can take the rest and not worry about getting burnt out, because that's the last thing anybody wants to be. And we can also see that this person has a defined emotional center or a solar plexus, and that's defined through the 4037, which we talked about. So it would be an emotional connection to making bargains or deals. So really, once again, it's just saying that if somebody breaks their promise, this person could really feel it. And the other thing that they have is a gate 22, and the gate 22 is all about charm. So this is a person who has a natural grace and charm about them. And the other side of it is somebody who doesn't have or is not graceful or is not charming. Because again, with any of these energies, there's always going to be a high side and a low side. And because of the energy of the 22, it's an individual energy, and basically it comes with a lot of mood, because of course it's attached to the emotional center. There isn't a full wave here, so this person wouldn't have a full emotional wave that's individual, but they would definitely have the electromagnetic to connect with somebody with the 12 energy. And what that can do is have a full emotional wave from the 1222 between the two people. The thing about the 1222, it's an amazing energy, but when it comes together, there can be a real loving energy between the two people, but then there can also be this feeling of getting into a highly emotional situation as well. That's just a potential. Then we also see that the gate 36 is also defined, and the gate 36 is also the gate of chaos. This can be somebody who likes to jump into chaos, somebody who gets bored quite easily. The whole high expression of somebody who has a gate 36 is really about going into an environment that is chaotic and putting it in order. So what that means is that this person could potentially be really good at crisis management or something like that. So if we move on to the incarnation cross, we see that this person is the right angle cross of rulership, and what that means is that they have the gate 22 in the conscious sun, the gate 47 in the conscious earth, the gate 26 in the unconscious sun, and the gate 45 in the unconscious earth. Now we talked about the gate 22, and that's all about charm, and the 47 is all about figuring out the big downloads from the 64. There can also be what's called a mindset with a gate 47. You have it in your top 4 numbers or your incarnation cross, which makes about 70% of your personality. Then that becomes a bigger theme in your life. Now, mindset is what we call thinking about things in a positive manner and getting things positively. So this would be something that could potentially be used in when you're talking about the law of attraction. You draw in what you actually believe in. And the other thing about it is this whole idea that when you think positively, positive things can happen to you. Now, this doesn't always work, but there is a potential for it in this chart, and when somebody carries a gate 47. So it's always something that they could sort of experiment with and think about the times that maybe they weren't thinking in the most positive way or thinking in the most beneficial way to them, what was their reality showing them based on what they were thinking, and then changing it up and thinking about things in a way that there is beneficial to them, or in a way that they're feeling happy about what's going on with their life, and seeing what kind of results they had there. So it's something to really experiment with, especially when it's up in the conscious earth, which is something that grounds you. So the way you think about your life and the way you perceive your life is really filtered through the gate 47. Now, if we look at the unconscious side, we see in the unconscious sun, we have the gate 26, which is all about, again, the sales energy that we talked about. And it's also about resources and so forth. And then the 45 is, again, about resources. So we have a person who has, in their chart, they have a lot of tribal energy, but they also have a fair bit of individual energy. And the difference between that is that somebody who has these two types of energies in their chart could really struggle with the idea of fitting in with the tribe, or always having to do what their tribe or their family or their friend sets are doing, or always being the tribal energy is about going to the dinners with the family reunion. It's about always being part of a tribe or doing what everybody else is doing because that's what is expected of you. It's pervasive and powerful energy, but when you have a lot of individual energy as well, it can be difficult because you're trying to be an individual, you're trying to go out on your own, you're trying to set your own path, and then the tribe is always telling you to come back in and this is the way you're supposed to act. So there could be a push-pull, especially with this incarnation cross. So it's about finding your place in the tribe, but finding your individual voice in the tribe, or finding your individual voice amongst the people who are your loved ones or the people that matter to you in your life. And so if you can balance this will help you a lot. This incarnation cross is also very good for a leadership potential. Now, somebody who has this energy, because we talked about the gate 45 being a natural leadership energy or a regal energy that is deferred rather than democratic, this is somebody who could definitely lead people or have a lot of influence in what people are doing. But the only way they're going to get this influence is if they're actually waiting to be acknowledged by people. Again, going back to the whole idea of being a projector, but also just because of the energy of the 45, it is a regal energy, but it's given instead of being taken. So if you're trying to take this energy or take this leadership, you're not going to get the best audience. But if you're given this leadership or given this energy to lead a group of people, then you're going to definitely get a lot better of an experience than if you took it. And then if we look at the gate 26, again, that's about sales, but it's also about selling ideas that are good for the tribe. Somebody who has a gate 26 can sell ideas, but they can sell ideas pretty much any kind because there is a lot of power in this energy. But ultimately, the most important way that somebody can get the most benefits from the gate 26 is to do it in integrity. Integrity is a huge piece in the 4426 when it's defined. So it's something about being in integrity, and when you're integrity, you're selling the right things to the right people so everyone can benefit, not just you. So when we get the whole incarnation cross together, we have this regal energy with grace and charm. We have this ability to sell ideas in a very influential way and to sell ideas that are going to be beneficial for all people involved. And that's about all I have to say for this chart. So let's move on to the next chart. So the next chart we have is for the birthday February 13th, 1979. So the first thing we can see with this chart is, once again, we have a projector. Now, we talked about the projector already, and I will just say just a quick thing about a projector. Again, it's to the best benefit for anybody who is a projector to always be acknowledged or even given an invitation when they're going to share their information. Because the thing about a projector is they're here to guide and direct, or to help the generator types in the world get the best results for their life. So there, you would imagine that the projectors are the managers and the generator types are the worker types. And when that works together, you have a combination or symbiosis of the two energies. And it's always going to work best when other people are asking for help as opposed to just offering the help. We also notice that this person is a 6-3 profile. Now, based on their birthday, that would mean that they're in the second phase of their profile because they're after the age of 28 or 30. Now, I have a whole video on the profile 6-3, but I just will do a quick description of exactly what it is. But for more information, you can just check out that video. And so when we talk about the 6-3 profile, we're talking about somebody who is basically in their first stage of life from 0 until 28, someone who is double experimental, because the sixth line always acts like a third line for the first 28 to 30 years of their life. So that means there's a lot of experimental energy, or energy where people are testing out life and seeing exactly what works and what doesn't work. Now, with a role model or the sixth line energy, what happens is after they've done their experiments for their life, they go what's called on the roof, or they basically kind of drop out of the world as they were doing it before. They'll stop with the experimental type of energy and start to learn and absorb and kind of pull apart and integrate all the things that they learned when they were in their third line phase. But you have to also remember that because this person is a 6-3 profile, they're always going to have an experimental part of their personality. So the experimenting will not go away. It may not be as extreme as it was in the first 28 to 30 years of their life, but it will always be part of who they are. So because of this, they could have had a few knocks in their life as they were going along, because it is what you would consider quite an extreme level of experimentation in their life. So they might have had a lot of things that they felt didn't go right in their life in the first years of their life, and when they get on the roof, they can think about what exactly they learned when they were experimenting and how they can use it in their life. The path of somebody who has a 6 line in their profile is always to become a role model, and the role model happens after the age of 50 or whenever they have their Chiron return, and that means that Chiron returns to the place it was when they were born. So anybody who has a 6 line in their profile is always going to be somebody who is considered somebody who is a late bloomer, or not always. I mean, there's a good potential that could be the case. Basically, you get the best in your life after you've had, it's like a fine bottle of wine, you ferment it for a long time, or you've aged for a long time, and when you come out, you have a more mature experience of what exactly you learned in your life. And the thing about the 6 line is, by being, they are showing other people how to be. In other words, being themselves is all they need to do. There's nothing special, and by being themselves, they're teaching other people how to be themselves as well. And what they're teaching other people is found in the rest of the chart, which we will start to go through in a minute. Now, this person has a 6-3 profile, but they also have the gate 36 as well, and the gate 36 is all about chaos. So somebody with the 6-3 profile might have a chaotic life, or a very experimental kind of life, and where they're always just shifting things up and changing and trying new and different things. And then they have this gate of chaos, which means that they could have had a whirlwind experience for their first 28 to 30 years of life. But again, what we needed to imagine is that all this information that they've learned is not of no value. I mean, this is the most important part of their life, to figure things out. And again, it's good that they have that space of time after the experimental time to start to understand what exactly they've learned and how they can transmit that to the rest of the world by just being themselves. Again, it's not an active that they have to do. It's just being themselves, doing their own thing. And by doing their own thing, they're inspiring other people. So if we look at the undefined centers first, we see that this person has only 3 undefined centers, and they're the root, the sacral, and also the emotional. Now, we're always going to know that the sacral is going to be open because this is somebody who's a projector type, and we know that this person is a projector type because we don't have any motors to the throat. Now, we see that the sacral is open, and whenever there's an open sacral or any center of any kind, that's more of a fluid energy, and it's not fixed. So this is something that you get from other people. So what can happen is you build up a lot of this energy, and somebody who has an open sacral area can have what's called just going above and beyond their capabilities, because they feel like this energy is just everlasting. And you can imagine that whenever any open center gets energy, it not only takes that energy in, but it amplifies it. So it gives them a huge burst of energy. So ultimately, the most important thing with anybody who has an open sacral, and that's manifestors, reflectors, as well as projectors, knowing when you've come to the limit of what you can do is really important. Especially in this chart, again, we have somebody who has a defined will, who can will themselves through anything they need to do to the point of depletion. So again, this is another person who has a real opportunity to burn out, but if they know their energy and know when they have gotten to the limit of what they can do, and they know when to rest, because again, the will center is all about working to rest, then they can make sure that they're going to keep themselves healthy and keep themselves out of the position of having to recover from having burned themselves out. So if we look at the sacral, we also see that they have the gate 5, also the gate 14. Now the gate 5 is all about routines, and this could be somebody who likes to have the same routine, the same coffee every morning. They like to have the same breakfast. They like to have routine. They like to know that when they get up in the morning, they're going to have the same thing that they're used to. This is somebody who might have a favorite chair. They might have a certain way they go to work. And whenever these routines are thrown out of rhythm, they could feel like it's a little bit upsetting to them. Now, if you have a lot of experimental energy like they do in this chart, it may not be as big of a deal for them, but it is something that could be potential. And when you also look at it, it's in the unconscious side of the chart, which means that they may not have noticed it about themselves as much as other people did. The gate 14 is all about natural luck. It can also be about abundance and resources. It can also be about seeing talent in other people. This could be somebody who could be a talent scout, or somebody who could be in a job where they needed to get teams together and knowing exactly the right people to pick in every team. Now, when you have the gate 14 on its own, like it is here, just hanging, that means that there could be potential for spending more than you receive, because of the 14 energy, you're always receiving a lot, or you're receiving a fair bit, but sometimes you're receiving a certain amount, but you're spending way more. So there is potential for this. Whether or not it's the case is really about the person in general. And if you also look at the root center, we see that this person has the gate 58 and also the gate 39. Now, we already talked about an open root, and it's all about adrenaline energy. This can be stress as well, and it could be this pressure to get things done, or this need for pressure to build up to get things done. It can be somebody who likes a lot of things that give them that shot of adrenaline, like coffee, sugar, anything like that. It can also be somebody who likes extreme things because it gives them that shot of adrenaline. So now we have the gate 58. The gate 58 is finding the joy in seeing something that's out of the pattern. So this is a very logical energy. So it's an energy to be able to see any things that are out of place. And when you combine it with the 18, you have this energy for somebody who could be critical. And this person doesn't have the energy of being critical. They could potentially have a little bit of it, but it's more about finding the thing that's wrong. So if you have a machine and it's making a particular sound and it's not working properly, or there's a computer program and there's something that's wrong with it, somebody who has a gate 58 could get in there, find out what's wrong with that program, and they can fix it and find a lot of pleasure in being able to fix that thing that is broken. So now if we look that they also have the gate 39. The gate 39 is the gate of provocation, and it hooks into the gate 55. The whole thing about the energy of the provocation is to provoke people into the spirit of abundance, or in other words, to provoke people into the idea that no matter what, you will be provided if you surrender to basically a higher force or universe, or somebody that's bigger than you, that's controlling this whole world we live in. And that, sometimes you don't always have all the answers, and sometimes the only thing you can do, if you've tried everything in your life and nothing is working the way you've wanted it to work, is just to let go and allow the universe to show you what they want to give you. And so that's the whole thing about the energy of the 39. That's the high expression. And the thing about the 39 is somebody who has a gate 39 can be somebody who provokes people, who likes to poke at people to get a reaction from people. There can be that potential. Now, that's not always going to be the case, but that can be the low expression of this energy. And if we look at the emotional center, we see that they have the gate 36 defined, which is all about chaos, or, possibility. They could be somebody who's good with crisis management, or somebody who gets bored easily and needs to jump from one job to another in order to find that thrill that they're always looking for. They also have the gate 22, which is also about grace and charm, or lack thereof, based on who they are and based on their mood. So it's somebody who could have a lot of energy to be very suave, somebody who could work a room, somebody who could really do, like if they had clients or something like that, they were in a business world and they were taking clients out, they could be just, the best hostess or host into the clients. And it's a really positive energy when it's on. But again, because it's an individual energy, it can be on or off based on the mood of the person. This person isn't defined emotionally, so it'd be less about the mood and more about the people that are with them, and really the electromagnetic. So if they did hook up to somebody with a 12 energy and they had the individual wave of the 1222, that could be a little bit more of a powerful energy an emotional energy that they might feel. And because when you have an open emotional center, you have the emotional energy is more fluid and, again, dependent on people who are around you and their defined waves. What's going to happen is you're going to have this energy, but it's also going to be filtered based on the gates that you have, and that's how you would express the emotional energy. So because of that, you can express it in all the ways that the gates, and in this way there would be 6 different gates, so 6 different potential expressions of the emotional energy, but also you can overlap those as you know, because nothing can be pulled apart definitively. So you also have somebody who has the gate 6. This is somebody who is willing to do whatever job they need to do to support their family, and this is a very tribal energy. It can be the male type of energy, and although a female can carry it just as easily, there's this energy of needing to provide for people to, you know, take care of the tribe. This is the energy of somebody who will fight for their family, who will not allow anybody to come in and disrupt their family. And we also have somebody who has the gate 49, and the gate 49 is a revolutionary energy. This is an energy that really pushes the limits of what's possible, and they want to come in with brand new ideas and brand new ways of doing things. And this is the energy of someone like Elon Musk, who comes in with the most revolutionary ideas and pushing the envelope on what can be done. It's a great energy, but again, there's a push with the 49 to always have the right timing, because if it's not in the right timing, it will not be received in the best way. The revolutionary energy can sometimes be a little bit of a difficult energy for people to carry, because it gets to the point where people who have this type of energy don't like to be told what to do by anybody, to the point that they will become very stubborn and they will push back and they will not listen to other people because they don't want to be told what to do. And so they might do something that they know is not going to be beneficial to them, just despite the person who's trying to tell them what to do. This is an energy of somebody who, good potential, would like to have be married or be in a committed partnership, and somebody who got in this partnership, if they had somebody with the gate 19, then there could be potential for a very committed relationship, and almost to the point of being a friendship relationship where you just feel so comfortable that you want to do everything together. The gate 19 and 49, when they come together, the energy is about just wanting to always spend time with this partner, and it's not because you have to, it's because you want to. And the last gate on the emotional center is the gate 30, and that's all about the intensity, the clinging fire, and really holding on to an idea until it can be brought to its conclusion. The other thing about the gate 30 is that just holding on to this idea to the point that you can exhaust other people with your idea, because you just keep, it keeps coming up and you just can't let go of it, especially because it's found in the Mercury, which is about, Mercury is all about communication. It's all about talking and communicating the idea. So this could be somebody who really talks about this whole idea or this thing that they want and continues to talk about it to the point where other people are getting burnt out, and they just want people to stop. So the idea is that, keep hold of this idea, hold on to it, but maybe sometimes not always verbalizing it, because, it can be exhausting for other people to hear about the idea. But again, never to give up. And it's a really great energy for bringing things into being. And when you think about it, it's low in the chart, so it does take a lot of energy to get up to the throat. The throat is the manifestation center, so it really is important to hold on to these ideas. So if we look at the defined centers, we see that they have a lot of definition as well. And what that means is that they're more fixed in the expression of who they are. So if we look at they have a defined head, and the defined head is through the 6447. We did talk about that just a few minutes ago, but just to reiterate, the 6447 it's all about big ideas, and big ideas that come as like one huge piece, and then the gate 47 is responsible for breaking the big ideas into smaller pieces so that the smaller pieces can be used to the benefit of other people. And like I said before, anybody with a defined head and ajna is somebody who's an inspiration to other people by just naturally walking around. And it's not like they're trying to be inspiring or anything, but just because they have that defined head and ajna, they have the energy that is easy. It's almost like they have something that can be picked up on a radar, and the radar are all the people that have the open heads and open ajnas. So if we look at the ajna is defined as well, and that's defined We already talked about the 47, and it's also the gate 4 is defined. Now the gate 4 is all about finding answers, or it would be connected to the gate 63. Of course, the gate 63 is not defined here, but the gate 4 is all the answers that you find after you've sort of been having a hypothesis, and with every hypothesis or a idea of something, you have to go in and you have to start to question it, see if it's going to work. And really that's what this whole energy is for. It's to see if things are going to work. Because if we just randomly accepted everything as going to be, something that we can have in our life, it would be difficult, because not all ideas are meant to be brought into form. Some are just, there's no real backing behind them, or there's no logical way to put them together. So this is the whole logic for it. And somebody with the gate 4, the low side is always having an answer for everybody. Even if the answer doesn't make a lot of sense, you just have to feel like you have to answer questions, or just always have a solution to people's problems, even if really what you're saying is not the most sensible way. The key with this energy, because there is no motor, and anything that doesn't have a motor in the body graph is considered something that's projected energy, or energy that needs to be called out of you in order for it to be received in the best way, is that when people are asking for the answers to the questions that they need, or they're asking for some solutions to the problems. And when that happens, you're going to have the best experience and be received in the way that is best served for you and as well as them. And this person also has the gate 43, and that's half of the gate, the channel 4323. And again, this is a mutative energy. This is an energy for having ideas that are far in the future, or things that are very mutative or unusual and innovative. So this can be somebody who has an idea for a really cool plan, or something that's completely different than anything that's ever been shown up before, but because they're talking about it a bit too early, that could be a problem, and people could shoot down their idea, or just think it's of no value and not think it's anything that would be viable. But if it's done in the right timing, people could look at that idea and think that, yes, it might actually be something that could work out. This is the whole Steve Jobs, when he came in with the whole idea of what he wanted to do with Apple. In the beginning, he was just shot down. Nobody really thought he had anything going on. And then when the idea came to the, when it was, the timing was correct, then he was considered a genius. So that's the whole thing about this energy. Now, if you notice that we have the head and ajna are defined, but there is a disconnect from the throat. So what that means is that this person may be lost in their thoughts a lot, or they might have an inability to feel like they can express what they're thinking. And because of that, there could be a lot of mind chatter and an inability to get out of their head. So it's to their benefit to actually, if they can, be out in a crowd or to be around other people, so that they can get the energy that they need, which would be the gate 11 or even the gate 23, to complete the channel, so that what they have going on in their head can be expressed, and it will just help them to be able to express exactly what they're thinking. But always to remember that it's all about timing, and to express what they're thinking when they're asked for the information. And if we look at the throat is defined as well. And again, there's no motor, so this is just a fixed way of speaking. And we have the gate 56, which is the gate of the storyteller. We talked about that. We also have the gate 8 and also the gate 33. The gate 33 is all about historical things or stories of the past. This could be somebody who likes history and, thinks about the past. And usually the whole point of the gate 33, and in this case, is actually hooked into the gate 13, so that you have the full channel. And this is all about looking at the past for things that have worked in the past, and bringing those past things to the future, and trying to shift them up enough that we can use them in the present. And because the technology might have been good in the past, there might be something that needs to be tweaked, and then if we do, then we can have it right now and it can help us. So there is this whole kind of retrospective look in this respect. We also have the channel, the 1-8, and that's defined as well. And the channel 1-8 is all about a creative leadership, and this is the both sides of the channel. So this is somebody who would have it's an individual energy, so it's energy of bringing a creative invention or a creative way of doing something to the people. And you can have a leadership energy with this as well. And so what's happening is you're creating something that's different and innovative, and you're creating it for yourself, but you're also creating it for other people. And it's also something that, in the right atmosphere with the right audience, then you can really be considered somebody who's kind of knows what they're doing, and you could have a lot of people just kind of hanging on every word you say. But if it's something that you're trying to push on people, or the timing isn't right, or you're trying to tell everybody what you know without being invited or acknowledged, then this could be something that unfortunately doesn't work out the best, and you're not heard in the best way. The other thing about the connection between the throat and the identity center is that there can be an energy here of somebody who literally is speaking from their soul, or speaking from the depths of who they are. So criticism of this person could be really, really devastating. So this is a person who might say something, and then if somebody, sort of cuts down their idea, or says, no, I don't like that idea, or is in some way critical, or just doesn't want to acknowledge this person's idea or what they're saying, then this person can feel it like a deep impact, and that could kind of make them not want to offer any information anymore, or share what they want to share, because they feel that they're a little concerned. They could be a little concerned that if they do say something, that people will criticize them, and if they do, then they just they can't cope with being criticized again. So the energy here is about accepting that if you wait for right timing, and wait to be acknowledged, and wait to have an invitation to share what you know, then usually it will be taken in the better light. And that criticism is somebody else's opinion. There's two types of criticism. One is to make you a better person because it's constructive and it helps you grow. The other is just because somebody has an opinion, and really to know that the difference between the criticism that can help you to advance or make you a better person, and take what you need from it and leave the rest behind. And the other aspect of it is just somebody's opinion, and really that's just their opinion. It's just, it's just hot air. It means nothing other than they need to just talk about it, and then just letting that go, and just like a wave, just let it flow over you and keep going, and not let it stick to you, and to say what you need to say when you need to say it, especially when you're being invited or acknowledged to have something to say. And then if we go to the defined will, we see the will is defined through the 4426, like the last chart that we looked at, and that's about sales energy. And again, this is somebody who can have a lot of integrity in what they do. There is another part of this energy, is somebody who could be into photography, or someone who likes to do photography, or taking pictures of people or images, or even like photo journaling or journalism or something like that. And we also see that they have a defined spleen, and that's with the 44, which we just talked about. And the 57 is considered one of the most intuitive gates of all the gates, but it's also a fear gate, because anything that comes out of the spleen is considered a fear gate. So the gate 57 is the fear of the future, and the gate 44 is also the fear of the past. So this is a person who might be really frozen in time because they're scared to move forward or scared to move back. And when you have a profile 6-3, you've had a lot of things that have happened in your life that may not have gone exactly as you planned. So there could be a fear here to really do anything or to move forward. And the only thing you can do with any of the fears of the spleen is to actually just push through that fear. And every time you push through the fear and just make yourself do something that maybe you are a little bit concerned about, like for instance, the 57 is looking into the future and imagining something in the future and not wanting to do anything because you're scared, because if you do something, then something bad might happen in the future. But just actually stepping forward into the future, because we all have to. That's just all part of life. And when you do, and you see that the thing that horrible thing that you expected to happen doesn't happen, then you can just see that it was a fear and it wasn't really a truth for you. And then if we look at the gate 44, if we're talking about that, it's looking into the past and worrying that the past is going to repeat itself. So if you've had a lot of things not go to plan in your life and you're worried that it's going to happen again and again and again, it's just keep trying. And what's going to happen is, because of life and the way it is, we always have things changing no matter what. If it's good or bad, we're always changing. And no matter what you do, you're always going to have a result, and the result is always going to be a little bit different than the last time. So it's just a matter of keep pushing through that energy and seeing that, doom and gloom is not always going to come, and things can actually go better than you expected. And when you see that happen, then it helps with getting rid of that fear. So the next time you go out and you get worried about the past repeating itself in a negative way, you can see that it wasn't exactly the case the last time. And then it just keeps moving forward and forward. And eventually the fears get to the point where they're not affecting you at all. So if we look at the incarnation cross, this is a left angle cross of revolution. And we have the gate 49 in the conscious sun, the gate 4 in the conscious earth, the gate 14 in the unconscious sun, and the gate 8 in the unconscious earth. So when we look at the 4 gates together, we look at the gate 49 being the gate of revolution. We talked about that. So this is really revolutionary ideas, or really unusual ideas and ways of doing things and change, bringing change to people. And we also have the gate 4. So this is answers. So that means that you're going to have the answers for how to bring the revolution or the innovative or the brand new ways of thinking. And if you go to the gate 14, this is all about like luck, but it's also about seeing talent in others, and all about resources, all about how to manage resources, how to manage people, how to manage the talents of people, and seeing the real value in people and putting them in the places that they need to. If we also add in the gate 8, which is all about creative leadership and a contribution of your leadership. So you're using your leadership and the contribution that you have, again, this is individual energy, to bring revolutionary ideas, unusual ideas, and you have the answer of how to bring those ideas into play. And if we look at the moon, which can really help with the incarnation cross as well, and talk a little bit about it, you have the gate 64, and you also have the gate 39. The gate 39, again, we talked about provocation, so it's provoking people into thinking different, thinking in revolutionary ways, or thinking outside the box, basically. And you also have the gate 64, confusion before breakthrough. So in other words, bringing these really unusual ideas or revolutionary ways of doing something, and in a way that in the beginning it might be a little tough, but then as it goes along, people will start to assimilate it and see that there is benefit to it. And when they do, then you can start to bring these new ways of doing things. But the key here is, because of the gate 30 in the Mercury, is to really make sure that this intensity for holding on to an idea doesn't get to the point where it's burning people out with the ideas and the ways you want to change the world, because we can't change the world unless we have people that support and want to walk behind us. And this, again, all this revolutionary energy, or this new ideas, or this way of doing things differently, and you have the gate 43 as well, it's important to always have an acknowledgement or an invitation to give the information or to share the information. Otherwise, it will not be received the way you want it to be received. And more important than anything is to have a reception for the ideas and what you're bringing forth, especially when you have the connection between the throat and the ajna. You just need to be accepted for what you're bringing forward in a way that you're not being criticized, or in a way that you're not being seen in a negative light based on what you want to share. And the one thing I don't think I mentioned was, I did say it before, but when you have the 4426 defined, that could be the energy of somebody who would be really good at sales or business, especially with a defined will center. Again, that's a business energy, or an energy of making resources, and also an empowering energy that people that are around you might feel empowered by just your presence. And that way you can have an impact on other people. And I just want to mention one thing here, because the Saturn is also expressing in the gate 64 as well as in the moon. So if you're driven by this idea of these big breakthroughs and these big downloads, and Saturn is also being all about these breakthroughs, because it's the defined in all of those places. And since Saturn is a lesson we learn, that we can stumble quite a bit before we get it right. And when we do get it right, then we get our Jupiter rewards. So what that means is that the gate 64, all about these big downloads, these big ideas, these big plans that you have, you need to make sure that you're being asked for the information and the timing is right. And if that's the case, then it will be a better experience, and you'll get through the theme of Saturn, and then you'll have what you really want, which is Jupiter, and that's to tell the stories of the past and share what you've learned and share what people have learned in the past, so that we can better the future. And that's about all I have to say for this chart, so let's go on to the next one. So the first thing that we can see about this chart is this person is a projector, as the other two were, and we know that because the sacral is open And so that means that the energy is more fluid, and the whole idea of knowing your energy and knowing how much you can do and what feels good for you is really important. Also, the concept of being acknowledged or invited before you share what you know or before you try to manage people is really important. So the other thing that we have here is, if we look at the sacral, which is open, and we'll look at all the undefined centers right now. Now we see that the sacral, the only gate that is defined on the sacral is the gate 59. Some people might consider this like a sexy gate, or sort of an energy that draws people into their vortex to basically, because everything that comes off the sacral is all about mating. But the other aspect of this is it's the gate of intimacy. So basically what this is it's drawing people into intimate relationships, and the intimate relationships can eventually lead to family or anything that happens in the sacral. It's all about life force energy. It's all about all the things we do to live as a human race, that we need to reproduce, that we need to take care of our kids and offspring and all that kind of thing. This is the first part of the energy where we start to build an intimacy with somebody else so that we have a relationship, and then we can move on to the other side of the sacral, which would be the 2750, and that's more about taking care of the family. So this is less about having a family and more about building up the relationship before you have a family. It's tribal energy as well. And because it's the only gate that's defined in the sacral, that would mean that it's a pretty good theme in this chart, because this is the only way that this person's energy would be filtered through this particular gate. Because when you have only one gate defined on a center, it generally means that a lot of the energy is kind of filtered through that particular gate. That would be the flavor of the energy that comes into the gate. And again, the energy is always going to be fluid because it's an open sacral, and not only would the energy be absorbed by other people, the workforce energy or the physical energy, it's also going to be amplified. And again, this whole idea of being careful so that you don't get burnt out, because you're really riding on other people's energy, and to know when you've had enough and to not really get to the point where you're actually being depleted. The good thing about this person is that they don't have a defined will center. In that respect, a defined will center has a lot of positive things, but when you have an open sacral, it can almost make you push yourself way too hard, and this whole theme of burnout can be a real problem for people. We can also see that this person has an undefined root, and again, this is all about energy and also this whole pressure to get things done. And again, it's the pressure to get things done as soon as you receive something, like a project or something, or the other way is to have pressure build up, and when you have the deadline almost sort of sitting on top of you, that's when you decide to get the work done, because you need that pressure to get it done. Now there's two gates that are coming off the root. One is the gate 54 and the other is the gate 53. Now the 54 gets matched to the gate 32, and this is all about basically the ambition, and then you have the 54, which is the other side of the ambition. So the gate 32 is all about, although the gate 32 is not defined here, we will notice in a minute that this is a combination between this couple. And so the gate 32 is all about ambition, and it's also about, because it's a spleen gate, it's going to be a fear gate. So this whole idea of maybe your ambitious plans may not come into fruition. But when you have the gate 54, you also have this whole concept that there is this ability to get things done, to find the ideas of how you're going to get these big plans done. So it's the matching gate. So it's actually really great energy for doing work together, doing any projects together, doing any business ventures together, because when you get these two energies together, you can have a lot of energy to actually make something successful. And the other concept of the gate 54 is that some people who have this gate can marry up or marry into a higher social standing than where they originally were, like where they were born. So they could marry somebody or get into a relationship with somebody who has a higher social standing than they do. Or also they can have a relationship where their standard of living or their quality of living in a financial way improves considerably. And that can happen in the relationship, after the relationship is formed, or it can happen even before, as in the person that they're in a relationship or married to is in a position of a higher social standing. The other gate that we have defined is gate 53. Now this is an important gate because the gate 53 is featured a couple times in the chart, but it's also featured up in the unconscious sun. So it means that it's a little bit more of a theme in this person's life. And the whole thing about the gate 53 is starting projects but not necessarily finishing. Now it can be a real difficult energy, and anybody who carries this energy a lot of times feels like they've started projects but they don't seem to have the energy to finish it. And they might feel like they're quitters, or that they never really go through with the projects that they start, or that kind of thing. Now if somebody else is in the relationship with this person, or even if they work with somebody else who has the gate 42 or the gate of the closer, this energy is not going to be a problem. But if it's on its own, it can really make somebody wonder if there's something wrong with them, that they can't finish the projects. And the whole thing about this energy is, the most important part of it is to know that this is a strength. When you have the gate 53, it's a strength for starting things, or for startup projects, or for initiating things. It's not a strength for project management. It's not something that if somebody has this gate 53, that's not going to be the best place for them to be in their career in project management. And if they were in a project management type of position, they may not do well, and they may not have the energy to do it in a way that they feel that they're actually getting everything they need to get done in that particular job. So that's something to keep into consideration, to know that this energy is really about starting but not necessarily finishing. And when you know this about yourself, it just makes it easier, because you're not beating yourself up because you didn't finish things, knowing that your job is really to start things but not necessarily go through and close the deal, as you would say. And if we also see this person has an open emotional center, so the energy is more fluid, it means that they don't have an emotional wave, but it also means that they're affected by emotional energy that's all around them. And they have the gate 55 and also the gate 30. The gate 30 is also about some level of intensity. This can be somebody who's an intense person, but also this idea of when they hold on to an idea that they want to bring into form, they don't really let go of it. And that can be really a great energy when you want to get something done and hold on to an idea rather than letting it go. So it's a good energy in that respect, but it can be an energy that if you're always telling people your ideas of what you want to get done or what you want in your life, it can be a little burning out for other people. So it's really good when you have this energy to wait for other people to ask you exactly about your idea or that thing that you're trying to bring into reality. And when you do that, then you're going to have the best reception to the ideas or the information or whatever you're trying to bring into fruition. We also have the gate 55, and this is the gate of surrender. And the gate 55 is one of those kinds of gates that you have to abide by the rules. Otherwise, you really can hit some brick walls. Especially since in this particular chart, the gate 55 is featured in Saturn, and Saturn are the big lessons we learn in our life so we can get our rewards. And so when you have the gate 55, which is all about surrender, and knowing that there's a bigger force in our lives that rather than just ourselves. I mean, it's like, you always have a plan, and you always think you can get it done, but ultimately the best laid plans don't always go exactly as you want them to. And when that's the case, you have to surrender to what is in the world. And this is all, the main word with this is surrender. And surrender to know that you will be provided for, that there is abundance in the universe, and that we will be taken care of. And when we do everything we can to try and make something happen and it doesn't happen, we can understand that we just have to let go. And the whole idea of let somebody, the universe or whatever you want to believe, if you believe in God or any of those bigger than us forces, can take care of the plan. And it's a really difficult journey, but once you start to get in the flow of understanding that you're just a little person, you're a little player on the field, and that things will be handled for you, things can be taken care of, then life will just get easier. And especially when it's in Saturn, it's one of those themes that the sooner you start to let go and surrender into what is in this world, the better your life experience will be. And if we look at the will center, it's a defined will, and we have the gate 40 and also the gate 51. Now the gate 40 is all about being alone, and it's one of the what they call the alone gates, or the gate that you like to spend a lot of time on your own. And the other thing about this gate is that there can be a sense that nobody really cares about you, and you could have a lot of people around you, and everybody could be telling you that they love you, but for some reason you don't feel loved and you don't feel like you're valued, and that kind of stuff, especially when you have it on an undefined will center, which can sometimes come with this idea of just not valuing yourself as much as you should, because we're all part of an important part of the world, no matter what small part or big part we play in it. And so understanding that you are valued, even if people aren't telling you all the time that you're valued, that you are inherently valued because you're here on the earth, and everyone in the earth has a place on the field. And the other gate that's defined on the will center is the gate 51, and that's a gate of shock. So it's also up in the conscious earth. So that means that this person may talk in a shocking way. And when you think about it, it's actually the opposing gate, or the opposite gate that would complete the channel, is the gate 25, and that's all about the love of spirit. So the 51 is shocking people into love of spirit. Now, somebody who has a 51-25, the whole channel, can have these life-changing experiences where you've heard of people who are having overdoses, and then suddenly once they come back from the overdose, these near-death experiences, they have this whole new perspective on life. And the gate 51 can really be about those kind of experiences that happen in your life. And if we look at the open head, we have the gate 64, and there's no connection to the ajna, which is defined. So that means that there could be a lot of mind chatter here, and this inability to really get those big ideas or those breakthrough ideas out of your head. So in this energy, there could be somebody who has a lot of mind chatter. And the thing about the mind chatter is sometimes just kind of letting it go and knowing that when the timing is right, those big ideas that you have in your head will start to come into play, and the right energy will come and connect with it, because usually it's a transit or people, and bring those big ideas into the next part of the ajna, where it can get closer to the throat, because there is a direct connection between the ajna and the throat. So if we now go into the defined centers, we see there's a defined spleen, and the gates on the defined spleen are the gate 57, which we already talked about. That's also about just being fearful of the future. And you also have that defined, and it's got a full channel between the 57-10, and that's all about this whole idea of trying to be perfect and feeling that life should be more perfect than it is. When you have this energy, you can have a very high standard of an expectation of both yourself and others, and it's something to keep in mind that we're not perfect, and even if we want to be, as humans, we're always going to have some imperfections. And when we see that it's okay to have imperfections, and it's not going to make that much of a difference if we have just small things that are not exactly as we want them to be, then it's easier to live and not get caught up in the whole idea of wanting things to be perfect. You also have the gate 48 that's defined. The gate 48 is the gate of depth. The thing about this is a person who could potentially always want to know all the information that they can about every detail, every topic of every subject. They want to have books on all the things that are interesting to them. The thing about that also is that because it's a fear gate, we're going back to the idea that they may not feel they ever have enough information to share. And so they can get locked in this whole idea of incompetence or inadequacy, because they just don't feel like they know enough. But 9 out of 10 times, anybody who has the gate 48 defined usually knows way more than they can ever give themselves credit for. And when they start to realize that they're okay and that they can just go ahead and share things and not really worry about it, the more times they share things and the more times they actually hear themselves talking about all the things that they didn't really think they had enough information about, they'll understand that really they know a lot more than they ever expected they did. And then we can see that the identity is defined as well. So it's defined through the gate 10 and the gate 57, which we just talked about. It also has the gate 7, the gate 1, and the gate 15. The gate 10 is all about empowering other people, and this could be empowering people or disempowering people, the high and low of any energy. It can also be a blame energy where this person can be blamed for things even if they didn't do it, or they could blame other people for doing things. So the highest energy, of course, is to empower people, to lift people up, and to show them that, you know, there is some value and worth in them, because it all comes from the identity center. So it really comes from the core of who they are. And you also see the gate 7, which is all about this leadership, but it's a leadership of basically the army, or it's a leadership of the people. So it's a democracy or democratic leadership. So this isn't just given, but they do have another energy of just having this regal energy, which is a 45. So there's a ton of leadership energy in this chart, and one is the regal energy, and the other one is a democracy, or they're put to the front to be the leader of, you know, whatever group they want to be, just because they showed people that they are good at what they do and they're good leaders. There's also this energy of the gate 1, which is a creative expression or the creative leadership. So again, one more way to have a leadership in this particular person's chart. The gate 15 is about extremes, and it's completely opposite to the gate 5. The gate 5 is all about, because they connect together, the gate 5 is all about having routines and having a set way of doing things and way of having your life organized. And the gate 15 is always trying to have that set way or that routine, but a lot of times they just can't seem to get it together. So if they want to exercise, and they want to exercise every morning at 8 o'clock, and then, you know, they do it great for about a week, and then the next week it just goes completely askew, and they beat themselves up because they don't get the routine. Because the whole thing about the gate 15 is they're not meant to have a routine. The routine is that you're meant to do when you need to do it. So for instance, if you say you want to exercise every day, I mean, that would be more of a reasonable way to do it. And so if you did it at 8 o'clock one day and 10 o'clock another day and 1 o'clock the next day, you're still getting that goal done, but you're doing it on your terms. And when they have a undefined route, I mean, this could be even more of a pressure to try and get things organized. So what usually happens if you're not actually understanding your energy is that you just will not do that particular thing you're trying to make part of your routine. And if we see that the throat is defined as well, we know that the throat isn't motorized, but it is defined, which means it's a more fixed way of speaking. We have the gate 56, which is the gate of the storyteller, the gate 23, which is mutative ideas, and this is bringing the mutative ideas into form, and it would connect to the 43. We also have the gate 11, which I didn't talk about, the 1156, which is about having a lot of ideas, but also bringing those ideas into concrete form. So it's great that they have the full channel, because not only do they have the ideas, this abundance of ideas, but they can also make them into something. And there's also the gate 45, which is the gate of regal energy or regal leadership, which is all about being recognized as a leader, but this leadership is always going to be something that's given, not taken. And there's also the gate 12. Now there's theories about the gate 12 being an ability to channel or to have a connection with the angelic realm. The other idea of the gate 12 is that it is a creative energy, but there can be a shyness in this energy, or a shyness, or it could also be a boldness, because it can go either way. Again, it's an individual energy. And the good thing about this chart is it's a single definition, which means that all the centers are connected together. So there really isn't any part of this person's chart where they feel like they can't express themselves. They also have the energy of the channel 1-8, and that's connecting the identity center to the throat. This is all about this idea of sharing yourself or sharing your information or talking. And when you do talk, you talk from your soul. So when people criticize or take you in a different way than you want them to take you, could be really difficult. And that's all about just understanding that criticism, like I said not too long ago in the previous chart, is criticism can be two different ways. It can be constructive, where you're actually learning something or you're bettering yourself, and there's a purpose to it. And then there's the other kind of criticism where people just give their opinions, and it really has no value at all. And understanding the difference between each criticism and understanding that one, you can help it and just take what you need from it. If there's anything of benefit or anything of value that you can take from the criticism, you can take it, and then the rest of it, just leave it behind, because it really doesn't serve you in any way, shape, or form to take criticism as a personal affront to you, because again, it's just this whole idea of people just wanting to talk just because they can hear their voice. Now let's look at the composite chart between the two people. Now we just did the chart on the left hand side, and that would be the original chart that we just did, and then the right hand side is an added chart. So if you look at this chart, you'll notice that the middle chart is a combination of the two charts together. So all the connections and all the channels, any that overlap, are all going to be shown. So if you notice, the green is going to be the left hand side, and the blue is going to be the right hand chart. So you can see where they come together. Now if you see a green and blue line, that means that both of the people that have both people have those particular gates defined. So if you look at the combination of the two charts, that you'll notice that there's only one center open, and that's the head center. So what that means is that there's a lot of fixed energy between this couple. So there's not a lot of room for bringing something new other than in the head center. So if we look at anything being open as a place where there's more fluidity and more ability to have a little more fluidity in the relationship, you have the head center. So this is where you can bring things that are new. And when you're talking about the head center, you're talking about new ideas and new ways of thinking, and just really having some conversations together about sort of ideas and things like that. We can also see that the person on the left-hand side has a defined ajna, which means that they have more fixed beliefs and ways of doing things, and the other person has an undefined ajna. So when you have somebody who has fixed beliefs or a certain way of doing things, and then you have somebody who is more fluid, there could be a few clashes here with this whole idea of, I only like to do it this way, and the other person says, oh, well, why can't we do it a different way than what you're used to doing? So that could be something that could show up. There's also the person on the left-hand side has an open root, and the person on the right-hand side has a defined root. And when you have this configuration, it's an energetic, and it's not actually something that anybody's really doing, but the energy of a defined root can almost make the person with an open root feel a pressure. And the pressure is to get things done, or it's like an adrenaline energy pressure, but it's not necessarily anything that the person with the defined root is saying. It's really an energetic. So for instance, you know, the person with the defined root could be just sitting watching TV, and then the person with the undefined root could say, yeah, I'm going to get that done. And the person with the defined root doesn't understand what they're even talking about, because they hadn't mentioned anything. So it's an energetic, and understanding that this energetic might be less about what the person's saying and more about an energetic, and to understand that the two are completely different. This person probably isn't pressuring you at all. It's just the energetic, and understanding that that's part of the dynamic, and knowing that, you know, you're not feeling the pressure because this person wants you to do something. You're just feeling the pressure because it's energy. And together, the composite between the two, there's going to be a motorized throat, and the motorized throat comes from the connection of the 3536, which is it's the channel of transition, or a transitory channel. Basically, this means that when they're together, there could be a potential for moving around a lot if there's an opportunity. I mean, you can have this energy but not move around because there's really no opportunity for you to move, but there could be this feeling that you want to go on a lot of trips together, or you might like to go to different places, or to move to different places. So there could be some moving around with this energy. And you also have the gate of 45 that's connecting to the gate 21, and I don't know if I talked about it in this particular when I was talking about this chart, but the gate 45 and the gate 21 can sometimes be a little problematic in relationships, just because the gate 45 is the queen energy, and then the gate 21 is the treasure energy. So when we imagine that a queen is taking care of their kingdom, and we have the treasurer who's taking care of the resources. Now the queen wants to just go and spend and do whatever they want, but the treasurer is saying, no, you need to stop spending, or we need to save, because, you know, we need to get through the winter, or we need to get through the tough times when we don't have money coming in. So there could be a push-pull with this energy about some money issues or resources, or how to spend the resources, and together you notice that it will define the will. So it's going to be quite an intense energy to have a push-pull. This can also mean not just about money. It can also mean about just trying to control somebody. And generally the control comes from the 21 or the right-hand side chart to the 45, which is the left-hand side of the chart. Now the 45 could potentially retaliate, and then there could be sort of a clash based on somebody trying to control and somebody trying to just live, their life and just do exactly what they're wanting to do. Now there's always going to be some middle way with this, and the middle way is to figure out that what battles are worth fighting and what can you just leave and not really concern yourself about. And both people coming to the table and saying, okay, well, maybe I don't need to control every little detail. Maybe you can, maybe you can do this and that and the other thing. And the other person saying, well, maybe I won't be spending this, or I won't be buying this, or I won't be going and doing this. And maybe we can have meet in the middle. Now, if this results in a issue with money management or an issue with people trying to, fighting a lot about money, the suggestion for people in this relationship is to actually get somebody else into the dynamic to actually take care of the money, to do finance stuff. An accountant or somebody who can do financial planning, so that you're not really having big fights over the resources or the money affairs in your household. We can also see that there's a connection between the gate 32 and also the gate 54. And I talked about this a little bit before, and that's just talking about this ambitious ideas or these big plans, and also having the energy to bring those big plans into fruition, or bringing those big plans into reality. And because it's down at the root center, it takes some time to actually get these things done. But if you look at between the two of them, you have the 3254, it goes right into the identity center and then right up to the throat. So it does have a direct path to the throat. And because the energy of the throat is motorized by the 3635 and also the 2145, as well as it also gets energy from the root. So you have every motor in the chart being activated and going to the throat. So it's a lot of energy for manifestation. So the connection is good in that respect, especially if it's a business arrangement or you're going into business of some sort together. Another positive is that they both have tribal energy. So there's going to be this energy of actually understanding this family thing, this tribe thing, going to events with the, different, tribes or different family events. Now, the only issue that you might run into here is that whose family is going to be more important. And because when you do have the tribal energy, you always think that your family is more important than the other family. And I guess there would have to be some level of compromise there. So sometimes you would go here, sometimes you would go there. The right-hand side has a lot more tribal energy. So they might, in fact, get their way a little bit more, because there's a compromising energy whenever you have somebody who has a full channel, as opposed to when you have like a hanging gate. So if we look here, we have on the left hand side, we have the gate 59 hanging, and then we have the right hand side, we have the gate 59 and the gate 6, and it makes a full channel. That's called a compromising energy. So usually when somebody has a full channel, they usually kind of win the battles when it comes to getting things done or doing things. Or there's potential. And if that becomes a bone of contention, there can be some issues with that as well. But generally, if you can do, relationships are all about give and take, and seeing that from that perspective can help a lot. Now, when you see that somebody has an open emotional center and then the other person has an emotional wave, that can sometimes be challenging, because when somebody has a big emotional wave and somebody is open, it can amplify the energy and make it almost overwhelming to the person who has the open solar plexus. And as I said, with any open center, there's a fluidity, and whenever the energy goes in, it's amplified, and then it can be released onto other people. But because this person on the right hand side has what's called a tribal wave, it's a lower key wave, it's more of an undulation, but usually when something's triggered, then that would cause them to, and usually when it's tribal, it's going to be about family or some issues with family. If that's going to be triggered, then that can cause this wave to get a lot bigger, and then but for the most part, it's pretty neutral and a little bit easier for somebody with an open emotional solar plexus to have in their relationship. And on the right hand side, we have somebody who has a gate 17, the gate 17 is all about opinions, and so this could be somebody who has a lot of opinions about the person on the left, and that could be quite hurtful to the person on the left, only because they are sensitive to criticism. So if they feel that any of these opinions are coming in a critical manner, then that could really make them feel a little bit insecure. And the last thing I'm going to talk about is that we have a generator type on the right hand side, and then we have a projector type. Now the generator type have the constant battery supply of life force energy, or the sacral energy, and when you don't have that energy that's so consistent and fixed when you're an open sacral type of person, then the energy of a generator can be something that's always going. And so when you're trying to get some sleep or something, it can be problematic because it's something that is not your energy and it's always there. So it can almost have a person with an open sacral having issues with sleep. The idea is that they should not actually sleep with somebody with a defined sacral. But again, if that becomes a problem, you can always figure it out and experiment with what works for you. So that's about all I have to say about this chart. Of course, there's lots more to say about composite charts and relationship charts, but for now, that's all I'm going to say. And I do appreciate all those people who gave me their birth details so I could talk about and analyze the charts. And I will be back with my last set of subscribers next month. And thank you for watching, and I will be back soon with lots more videos.